We'd been planning for weeks. It's Wednesday, and we make a journey to Rome. So, we're in Italy, and we meet up with Marcin. And we catch a train from the main station, heading south through the valley, to where once there was a battle fought 75 years ago. It was a battle on a mountain, and they called the battle Monte Cassino. That was where the flag went up. And then the battle came to an end. Those men had died on the mountain, and they did die for a reason. Don't forget them. Hi, I'm Tim Holden, and I'm here at Cassino to remember more than the members of my family who fought in Italy, but to remember all those who came here to fight in a dreadful war in the shadow of the abbey up on the mountain. This is where the story ends, in a way, and I'm here to tell you that story. At the beginning, we must understand the battle, so we study the maps. These are lines on paper that represent men and where they must go. Basically, they must go up over a steep and stony slope, steeper and sharper than I had ever thought. Our destination is the legendary monastery ruined in the terrible battle of 1944. Now, that monastery is fully restored. Dr. Danila is our guide. We're going to the top of the mountain, through the town that was completely destroyed, and then up. The commanding view of the valley, this is what the German defenders could see. And we go up and up again. How difficult it was to ascend under heavy fire, splinters of metal and stone everywhere. The monastery has been completely destroyed 4 times, and each time lovingly rebuilt. The shapes, the architecture, the art, the determination of faith. Our guide is going to tell us a moving story of what happened after the Polish troops reached their goal.
So the Poles arrived from that location, which is southwest and overlooking today the Polish cemetery. So when they arrived, Don Germano was a monk of this monastery, and he was a student at the time and then became headmaster of the Noble College of Monte Cassino. He told me that when the Poles arrived, they want to have a mass. So they took a Madonna from what is now near the souvenir shop. There was a chapel, and they put the Madonna there and was celebrated the first Mass on the 18th of May when they arrived.
The view was beyond what I expected. So here I am, looking out from the point which the Polish flag was raised. You look down the slope, the ravines, the difficulties of making that advance. Over there is the Polish cemetery, and I am full of respect for what I see and the human determination and endeavor that was needed to gain this point of the hill and to raise a flag above it. When you're in Monte Cassino, you begin to understand toil and courage and blood. Hill 593 is a hill of stone, hard and pitiless. All the attacks went forward in hope. All of them were repulsed in despair, the ground covered with dead and wounded. The lucky ones would be retrieved to either be buried or to be taken to distant hospitals in faraway Bari, bumping down a long dirt road. Artillery fire blasted fragments of shell and splinters of stone over the fighting soldiers. Snipers fired from the high ground defended by crack German paratroops. These are easy steps to a memorial. Where the names fade, time passes. Each name here is a life cut short. And for most of these names, it was their first battle. So I'm standing here at the peak of Hill 593, a notorious part of the battlefield where there was a heavy cost. And at the end, there's a monument. And there are words on the monument that say what needs to be said. They can never say everything that needs to be said. And these words are carved here in the stone, and I'll read them to you. For our freedom and yours, we soldiers of Poland gave our soul to God, our life to the soil of Italy, and our hearts to Poland. A short distance from 593 is a little house that played its part in the battle. Today we find an old man and an old lady living there who almost could be relics of the battle. This was the doctor's house where the wounded were brought. Then we reach the visitors' center. I speak to a nice lady there who described how thousands of the soldiers were deported from Poland, were imprisoned in Siberia, and then they marched to Palestine before coming here to Italy. In the visitors' center is a fine map made of metal that shows the great journey of General Anders and his Polish army and the vast distance they covered in order to come into the battle. More than 1,000 of them lie in the cemetery. Later, in accordance with Anders' wishes, the proud general was buried there too, joining his faithful men. The cemetery is laid out on the hill before you. Officers and other ranks lie together, names carved in stone, and small details of their age and birthplace that give some clues as to who they were. These young men lie together in a land far from home. We're in the military cemetery for the Polish army at Monte Cassino. Laid out behind me is the Jewish area of the cemetery. This is an area medics, corporals and riflemen who fought for Poland. "25 years after the Battle of Monte Cassino, General Anders was buried here with his troops. He insisted on being with the men who he had exhorted to go into battle for the country and for the honor and spirit of the Polish nation. His wife was laid to rest with him as well. Behind him are the men and the graves of the men who were laid in the soil of Monte Cassino, a battle that they had marched thousands of miles to get to a place that they never left. History is all around the rebuilt town. This is a great list of names on a monument in the square, and the names on it are the names of civilians. These were the people of the town of Cassino who died in the battle. It's not short. There's 2,000 names on this piece of stone. The German paratroopers made deep caves in the limestone rock where they could hide from the enemy and where they could be sheltered from the bombs that were dropped upon them. The retreating Germans fell back a short distance from the Gustav Line to what they called the Adolf Hitler Line. A week later, Anders' men from the city of Lvov came over and down the high hills into the small town of Piedemonte San Germano, where they had to fight again. When that fight was over, at last, the valley of the Liri River was open. The people of Piedemonte were never wealthy, but they were always grateful, and they built a monument to the Polish people who liberated them. We came to the Commonwealth Cemetery, a beautiful, orderly place where, laid out in 20s by 20s, are the graves of the men from the Commonwealth who came here and stayed here. From the cemetery, you can look up and see the Abbey, and they have remained all this time, and they will remain here forever. We saw carved on the gravestones messages from their families, sad messages of missing these people, and yet messages of pride in what they had done. I'm standing here beneath the heights of the monastery in a cemetery to the Commonwealth war dead, where lie the people of many nations who came to Italy in 1943 and 44 and who didn't go home to the countries that they came from. Those countries were India, New Zealand, Australia, Britain, South Africa, Nepal, and many, many other countries. We have other graves where they don't know who they buried, and on those stones it simply says, "Known unto God." Thank you for being with me, Tim Holden, and giving me the opportunity to tell you this story. We're leaving now. There's much more to tell, and there's much more to come. Don't forget to share this video, and this is Tim Holden signing off.